So let's do the simplest, most canonical programs here, starting up with control. And I'm going to click and drag and drop this thing here when green flag clicked. And then I'm going to grab one more, for instance, under looks. And under looks, I'm going to go ahead and just say something like, initially, not just hello, but the more canonical hello, comma, world. Now, you might guess that in this programming environment, I can go over here now and click the green flag, and voila, hello, comma, world. So that's my first program, and obviously much more user-friendly than typing out the much more cryptic text that we saw on the screen that you, too, will type out next week. But for now, we'll just focus on these ideas, and in this case, a function. So what is it that just happened? This purple block here is say. That's the function. And it seems to take some form of input in the white oval, specifically hello, comma, world. Well, this actually fits the paradigm that we looked at earlier of just inputs and outputs. So if I may, if you consider what this puzzle piece is doing, it actually fits this model. The input in this case is going to be hello, comma, world in white. The algorithm is going to be implemented as a function by MIT called say. And the output of that is going to be some kind of side effect, like the cat and the speech bubble are saying hello, world. So already, even that simple drag and drop mimics exactly this relatively simple mental model. So let's take things further. Let's go ahead now and make the program a little more interactive so that it says something like hello, David, or hello, Carter, or hello to you specifically. And for this, I'm going to go under sensing. And you might have to poke around to find these things the first time around. But I've done this a few times, so I kind of know where things are and what color. There's this function here, ask what's your name, but that's in white, so we can change the question to anything we want. And it's going to wait for the human to type in their answer. And this function called ask is a little different from the say block, which just had this side effect of printing a speech bubble to the screen. The ask function is even more powerful in that after it asks the human to type something in, this function is going to hand you back what they typed in the form of what's called a return value, which is stored ultimately in, by default, this thing called answer. This little blue oval here called answer is, again, one of these variables that in math would be called just x or y. But in programming, we're saying what it does. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Let me go ahead and drag and drop this block. And I want to ask the question before saying anything. But you'll notice that Scratch is smart, and it's going to realize I want to insert something in between. And it's just going to move things up and down. I'm going to let go and ask the default question, what's your name? And now if I want to go ahead and say hello, David or Carter, let's just do hello, comma, because I obviously don't know when I'm writing the program who's going to use it. So let me now grab another looks block up here, say something again. And now let me go back to sensing and now grab the return value represented by this other puzzle piece. And let me just drag and drop it here. And notice it's the same shape, even if it's not quite the same size. Things will grow or shrink as needed. All right, so let's now zoom out. Let me go and stop the old versions, because I don't want to say hello, world anymore. Let me hit the green flag. And what's my name? All right, David, enter. Huh. All right, maybe I just wasn't paying close enough attention. Let me try it again. Green flag, D-A-V-I-D, enter. This seems like a bug. What's the bug or mistake, might you think? Yeah. Yeah, we kind of want to combine them in the same text box. And it's, it's technically a bug because this just looks kind of stupid. It's just saying David after I ask for my name. I'd like it to say maybe hello, then David, but it's just blowing past the hello and printing David. But let's put our finger on why this is happening. You're right for the solution, but what's the actual fundamental problem? In back? Perfect. I mean, computers are really darn fast these days. It is saying hello. All of us are just too slow in this room to even see it, because it's then saying David on the screen so fast as well. So there's a couple of solutions here, and yours is spot on. But just to poke around, you'll see the first example of how many ways in programming, be it Scratch or C or Python or anything else, that there are going to be to solve problems. And we'll teach you over the course of this weeks. Sometimes some ways are better relatively than others. But rarely is there a best way necessarily, because again, reasonable people will disagree. And what we'll try to teach you over the coming weeks is how to kind of think through those nuances. And it's not going to be obvious at first glance, but the more programs you write, the more feedback you get, the more bugs that you introduce, the more you'll get your footing with exactly this kind of problem solving. So let me try this in a couple of ways. Up here would be one solution to the problem. MIT anticipated this kind of issue, especially with first-time programmers. And I could just use puzzle piece that says, say the following for 2 seconds or 1 second or whatever, then do the same with the next word. And it might be kind of a bit of a pause. Hello, 1 second, 2 seconds. David, 1 second, 2 seconds. But at least it would look a little more grammatically correct. But I can do it a little more elegantly as you proposed. Let me go ahead and throw away one of these blocks. And you can just drag and let go, and it'll delete itself. Let me go down to operators, because this join block here is the right shape. And so even if you're not sure what goes where, just focus on the shapes first. Let me drag this over here. And it grew to fill that. Let me go ahead and say hello, comma, space. And now it could just say by default hello, banana. But let me go back to sensing. Drag answer, and that's going to drag and drop there. And so now notice we're sort of stacking or nesting one block on another so that the output of one becomes the input to another. But that's OK here. Let me go ahead and zoom out, hit stop, and hit play. All right, what's your name? DAVID, enter. And voila, now it's presumably as we first intended. So thank you. Thank you. No -2 this time. So consider that even with this additional example, it still fits the same mental model, but in a little more interesting way. Here's that new function, ask something and wait. And notice that in this case, too, there's an input, otherwise known henceforth as an argument or a parameter, programming speak for just an input in the context of a function. And if we use our drawing as before to represent this thing here, we'll see that the input now is going to be, quote unquote, what's your name? The algorithm is going to be implemented by way of this new puzzle piece, the function called ask. And the output of that thing this time is not going to be the cat saying anything yet, but rather it's going to be the actual answer. So instead of the visual side effect of the speech bubble appearing, now nothing visible is happening yet, thanks to this function. It's sort of handing me back like a scrap of paper with whatever I typed in written on it, so I can reuse DAVID one or more times even, like I did. Now, what did I then do with that value? Well, consider that with the subsequent function, we had this say block 2 combined with a join. So we have this variable called answer. We're joining it with that first argument, hello. So already we see that some functions like join can take not one, but 2 arguments or inputs, and that's fine. The output of join is presumably going to be hello, David, or hello, Carter, or whatever the human typed in. And that output, notice, is essentially becoming the input to another function, say, just because we've kind of stacked things or nested them on top of one another. But methodically, it's really the same idea. The input now are 2 things, hello, comma, and the return value from the previous ask function. The function now is going to be joined. The output is going to be hello, David. But that hello, David output is now going to become the input to another function, namely that first block called say. And that's then going to have the side effect of printing out hello, David on the screen. So again, as sort of sophisticated as ours, as yours, as others' programs are going to get, they really do fit this very simple mental model of inputs and outputs. And you just have to learn to recognize the vocabulary and to know what kinds of puzzle pieces or concepts ultimately to apply. But you can ultimately really kind of spice these things up. Let me go back to my program here that just is using the speech bubble at the moment. Scratch, as an aside, has some pretty fancy interactive features too. I click the extensions button in the bottom left corner. And let me go ahead and choose the text-to-speech extension. This is using a cloud service. So if you have an internet connection, it can actually talk to the cloud or a third-party service. And this one's going to give me a few new green puzzle pieces, namely the ability to speak something from my speakers instead of just saying it textually. So let me go ahead and drag this. And now notice I don't have to interlock them if I'm just kind of playing around and I want to move some things around. I just want to use this as like a canvas temporarily. Let me go ahead and steal the join from here, put it there. Let me throw away the say block by just moving it left and letting go. And now let me join this in. So I've now changed my program to be a little more interesting. So now let me stop the old version. Let me start the new. What's your name? Type in David, and voila.
Hello, banana.
OK, -2, for real. All right, so what I accidentally threw away there, intentionally for instructional purposes, was the actual answer that came back from the ask block. That's embarrassing. So now if I play this again, let's click the green icon. What's your name? David. And now,
hello, David.
There we go. Hello, David. All right, thank you.